usually you'll see on the screen when I fade up the flag. If you just like count to 10, it will be on the screen.
Good evening. I'm calling the Monday, January 11th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. All right, we have another hybrid meeting tonight. So we have some people online and some people in person. So thank you, everyone, for attending. First item on the agenda tonight is the approval of tonight's agenda. Do I have any requests for changes to the agenda? Seeing none and hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
All right. Motion from Commissioner Higgins. Do I have a second to approve tonight's agenda?
I will second that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I think there's Commissioner DeSanctis of a second. All those in favor of approve the agenda say aye.
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 Opposed? No one's opposed.
8-0.
Okay. All right. Second item on the agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes from the meeting held on December 14th, 2020. Would anyone like to request some changes or concerns about the minutes? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from Monday, December 14th.
I'll move approval of the minutes of, what was it, February? No, sorry, December 14th.
I have a motion from Commissioner Higgins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Kirk. All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
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 Anyone opposed or abstained? All right, moving on this evening, we have one public hearing on the agenda. This is a variance number 2020-04, location 8350 Commonwealth Drive. This is a request for a monument sign height of 8 feet 2 inches. City code maximum is 6 feet. Monument size, base size of 38.8 square feet. City code maximum is 16 square feet. Will the proponent please come forward? Good evening. If you would you state your name and spell it for the record, please, and tell us about your project?
Yeah. Hey, good evening. My name is Steve Nornes. It's Nornes. And Happy New Year's, everybody. That's glad to be here. I'm the developer for the Castle Ridge project called Flagstone, and so I'd like to give you a request for a variance. And just the first slide, I'd like to just give a brief update on construction. It's been going really well. Even during this times of COVID, we've had very little delay. We're on target. August delivery will be, first move-in will be in September. And we're starting the team of onboarding to get people ready. Sales have been going great. We have a sales office right across the sales trailer, and we're exceeding our expectations for sales on target, so the market's responding well, and they're excited to becoming new residents of Flagstone, and we're excited to have them in. The picture here is just from the north side, and you can see in that progress here. The next slide. We did some interior work. You probably haven't seen it, but it's more of a contemporary design. The slide on your left-hand side, up on the on the 5th floor overlooking Eden Prairie Center, we have a Skyview Lounge, which has a place for cooking and a place for billiards and fireplace and an outdoor patio, and it has phenomenal views. We're really excited about that place and the place to be used. The next rendering we just developed is the main entrance as you come in. And so as you come into the community, there's a bistro, there's a large reception area. As you look through, you're looking at Purgatory Creek, and so it has a good look-through building, and the market's responded well with the light colors, the contemporary design, and so just thought I'd share those since we haven't been back, and you saw before the exterior, but the interior is coming on. What we have before here is our site plan, and we're asking for one sign to be increased, and the sign is on Commonwealth Drive, which is a private drive. Our request is basically if people are coming on Prairie Center Drive, we're set back in the site. They cannot see that. There's going to be the Oppidan site, the retail, it's going to be on the east, and then you got the Paravel Timberland site on the north side of it. And so we're really asking for just a little, an increase that will allow recognition as people come in. And so that's our, our request for that. Next slide. On the Commonwealth Drive is right in the front, and so the monument sign is going to be on that right-hand side over. That's the healthcare center sign location there, but on the right-hand side, right where Julie has, thank you, that's the monument sign that we're asking for the increase. And we really want that as you're coming in off Prairie Center, you can find us. And so that's the location of that sign. Architecturally, what we're looking to do is make sure we have elements from the building, the brick. We have, the reason why it's going high, we have on the right-hand side a column. That's actually going to be a light column. And that light column mirrors two different columns that are on the building. We have light columns going up. You can see that right in the background. There's a next to the blue, and then by the main entrance. So what we're trying to make is a site that's cohesive. We have an artistic element in, and that would be on the monument side and the healthcare side, and then we have that sculpture piece kind of on the main entrance you come in. So we're really trying to tie the whole campus together to make it one, make it, as you come in, you know you're at the Flagstone project, and so architecturally that's what we tried to deal with. And as you stated earlier, we're really looking for 8'2" in the width of 9'6" is our request. And then last slide I included in staff report earlier, just where the healthcare center sign was. They wanted to make sure we were far enough away from the setbacks. And you can see from the property line we're 30 feet, and from the water main we're 23 feet. So we have proper clearance back and setbacks for that sign location. So it is a request for you to consider to increase the size. We think it will be a great asset to our community to have good queuing coming in, and so we appreciate your support on that.
Thank you. Any initial questions for Mr. Nornes?
I have one.
Yeah. Commissioner Meddy.
Do you know, you might not know this offhand, but what the setback is of the larger sign that the variance is being requested on? I know the staff report had mentioned that it met the setback requirements, but now I'm realizing that since that is I imagine that it's actually property line wise, within the setbacks, but just the setback from the street itself. I don't know if there's a difference between those two figures or if that's the same, one and the same.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Meddy, the setback is measured from the property line. So the fact that it is a private street doesn't necessarily have the same impact. And the sign does meet the required setback from the property line.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Norris?
Yes.
I have a question, Commissioner DeSantis. I noticed in your specifications, the monument sign base of 38.8 square feet, when the city code maximum was 16, you're asking for approximately a 25% increase variance on the height. So I'm wondering why the base size is expanded so much relative to the increment you're asking for on the height.
The simple response to base sign is the width is to get the sign in there and also have that architectural element within it.
All right.
Okay. Any other additional questions before we go to the staff report?
Thank you.
Mr. Norris. Julie, will you Take us through the staff report, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the request before you this evening is a variance request, and it is twofold. As Mr. Nornis reviewed with you, there is a request to increase the sign height. Right now, city code requires a maximum sign height of 6 feet, and this sign does have a design element that reaches up to the 8 feet 2 inches, if I recall correctly. The majority of the sign is at a height of 6 feet 6 inches, so just over that top of what the city code requires as a maximum. And then the design features on the right-hand side of the sign, if you're looking at it straight on, exceed the height up to that 8 feet. The second variance request is for sign base. As was stated, city code requires a maximum sign base of 16 square feet, and they are requesting approximately 38 square feet for that base. To address Commissioner DeSanctis's question, the base measurements are not necessarily proportional to the height request, because the height request is not for the entire length of the sign. It is only for just a small portion of that sign that they need to exceed up to that 8 feet 2 inches. Staff is recommending approval after reviewing the variance request against the statutory criteria, and does find that this request meets those criteria, and we're recommending approval subject to the conditions noted in your staff report, specifically tying this variance back to the design noted in the plans that are stamp dated and referred to in your staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Thank you, Julie. I would like any questions for the city? Commissioner Meddy.
The question that popped up as I was reading the staff report was, is this sign, what's the sign requirement for the commercial retail tenants that will eventually be in here? But it mentioned that sign maximum is larger than what the residential zoning allows. Do you know, number one, approximately how much bigger will the commercial signage be? And then also, as it relates to the PUD that we've approved, I can't recall if there was just a general monument sign kind of depiction or location, but I know that I think there's at least 4 maybe distinct buildings in that. And as it relates to actually even this intersection here, is there going to be, how is that signage gonna work? Which is a little bit off topic because that's not this particular development, but just thinking forward to that signage plan. If one development comes forward, are they just going to have spots for everything else to share one space, or how does that work?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, to answer the questions in reverse order. So when the commercial development came in, their site plan may very well have shown sign locations. However, as a part of the PUD, it is standard process to not approve the sign plan as a part of that. Instead, what's noted through the approval process and the development agreement process is that all signs have to go through our administrative review permitting process and meet city code requirements. Therefore, if after the fact there is a sign issue, then they would have to come back through that process. Now, because this is a PUD, it is a PUD for the entire 3-phased site, and it is also a PUD for the 3 individual sites. How the commercial developer chooses to address signage remains somewhat to be seen, because they could opt to follow the sign code based on individual parcels, what's allowed, there's X amount of square feet allowed for a monument sign per street frontage or per access point, that type of thing. Or they could choose to go the PUD route, where they can be allowed a larger sign and note multiple tenants on that sign. So that is a little bit to be determined, so I can't give you a definitive answer on that.
No, that's helpful just to understand how that process might work.
Did I cover all of your questions?
I think so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, I guess the point, though, of that question, and this is more of a comment now, is I just was concerned whether or not we need to be concerned that allowing this variance is then going to set a precedent to the commercial, and everybody wants it to be a little bit bigger because everybody's off the main road a little bit and whatnot. But I don't think that's the case here. I think it's a different situation with the commercial than it is for this building.
Other questions from the commission? Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner Farr.
I have a question about, just a little follow-up on Commissioner Meddy's first comment about the setback for the sign and how that relates to the curb specifically. I understand the property line's in the middle of Commonwealth, and so it's got some relief there. And I understand the compliance with the strict portion of the sign code, but what I'm wondering is engineering took a look at the sightline distance. If this was a public street intersection, and it's not, the vehicular sightline around the corner would have to be looked at and reviewed for that sightline triangle. And it appears as though this sign may not meet that sightline triangle. Looking at their site plan, I can envision someone literally on the sidewalk, elderly, potentially in a wheelchair, and not having the visibility of someone coming northeast on Commonwealth, and them being hidden by the sign. So I'm just wondering if that engineering check had been taken into consideration with the sightlines.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, City Engineer Rod Rue is attending our meeting virtually this evening, so I would defer that question to him if he's able to join in.
Yes, I'll try to answer the question. I have not seen whether another staff person has reviewed it. I have not reviewed the location of that sign relative to sight lines, but yes, that would be our main concern is the sight lines at that intersection. If this were a public street intersection, we'd have approximately 10 feet behind the curb would be the right of way, and then the setback for the sign would typically be another 10 feet back, so it would be 20 feet back from the curb line. And I don't know what the location of how close this sign is to the curb, but that would be, if it were a public street, that would be the setback requirements.
So, Mr. Chair, I think his answer causes me pause. I think maybe some investigation on that. I don't take issue with the design of the sign or the variances, quite frankly, on the size or the height, as much as the orientation to the sight lines of the roadway intersection, specifically with pedestrians, even though the metric that we're talking about is a vehicular sightline test, but it affects pedestrians even more in this particular situation.
Julie, would you like to respond?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, keep in mind that the request before you this evening is for the variance items, so the sign height and the sign base. They're assuming that there is action taken on the variance request. There is still the review process of the sign permit, so that is certainly a point at which staff would be reviewing and confirming setbacks, because maybe some things change between now and permit submittal, as well as taking a look at those sightline requirements. So the question before you this evening relates more directly to the sign height and sign base, and we will be reviewing for those other items at time of permit review.
Yeah, I
Suffice?
kind of figured that, but it's a really important point. So that needs to be taken into consideration before the sign gets built. Other comments or questions from the commission? Otherwise, we'll go to the public hearing. All right. This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to come forward and speak for or against this project, please do so now. Not seeing any, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing and have further discussion if we so choose.
I'll move to close the hearing. Mrs. Marcus.
Okay. Commissioner Marcus moves to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Gooding.
Second from Commissioner Gooding. All those in favor of closing public hearing say aye.
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 Opposed? Would you like to do a roll call on that, Julie?
No, sir.
All right. Public hearing is closed. Further discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Mitty.
Just two quick points. One, I do echo Commissioner Farr's concerns, and I think Julie's right in that we're here to approve the variance on the size, and that the staff, requests that they make sure that the sight lines are appropriate and that the location of the sign itself does not impede on visibility. But I also wanted to just commend the developer on the project. I've driven by, and in the approval process, I really enjoyed the design where kind of each unit, since it's the views of Purgatory Park, each unit has this kind of balcony system that it's not just a flat facade, everything's angled out for maximum viewing. And if you drive by and see it, I appreciate it even more now how amazing those units are going to be. And I know that was a lot more expensive probably to develop it that way. So I wanted to commend the developer on the design. I think it's a really great project.
Thank you, Commissioner Meddy. Other comments or questions or discussion items?
It's Commissioner Kirk. I just would like to comment on the specifics of the sign. I defer to Commissioner Farr relative to his comments about placement. I do think that's important. But I think this is a very reasonable variance in my mind to approve, in that we're not talking about an entire sign and a big massive sign, but we're talking about basically an architectural element in the sign which does exceed our code, but fits very much into the community and also provides a little, with the light bar there, a little bit of attention getting, which is the purpose of having the sign there. So I personally like the design and support it from the standpoint of the size variances that we're being asked to approve.
Any other comments or items
Well,
to discuss?
this is Commissioner DeSantis. I just wanted to make the comment that what I do like about the sign and its architecture is that it's consistent with what the city has done in terms of establishing markers at key entry points into the city, welcoming people to Eden Prairie with iconic seagulls. So I think this is consistent with that aesthetic decor already established in the infrastructure.
All right,
Mr. Chair?
yes, Commissioner Farr.
I'll just echo some of the compliments about the design of the sign as well. I think it's well integrated with the building design, and I too have enjoyed driving past it during construction and seeing the progress, and I think it's going to be a great project for our city, and I think the context of the building and the proportions with its site are exemplary, so thank you for that. As to, I believe it was Commissioner Meddy again who mentioned about potential sliding slope of granting a variance for signs and hoping that wouldn't repeat itself throughout the city. Potentially there's a chance for further dialogue on that as it comes to other sign metrics that aren't in the zoning ordinance. One of them potentially being the messaging font size that's necessary to draw one's attention from the intended distance of the audience. This is a very close range sign, even as pointed out by the applicant, and they don't need very large letters to get their message across. And so that's somewhat contrary to then allowing a larger sign. I'm not taking exception to the large sign in that particular case, but that's a metric that maybe ought to be taken into consideration in the future when we're looking at sign sizes. And the other issue that was brought up in the staff report was the size and scale of the building. Again, this is a very large structure and potentially warranted that a larger sign might be proportional for its use. However, other aspects of building size come into play about the building itself, its setback from the property as to whether it's a deep setback and that building is a long way away and the sign is close. There's all sorts of proportional things that come into play on that. So I'm just afraid of setting a precedence for just because it's a big building, a big sign is warranted. So those are just additional opinions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. Would anyone like to have further discussion? Otherwise, I think If someone would like to make a motion?
We moved to close the hearing? I already did
We
that.
closed it. Already did that. Yep.
I'll move to approve the variance request number 2020-04 based on information outlined in the Planning Department staff report dated January 11, 2021, and the findings and conditions of final order number 2020-4.
I have a motion for approval from Commissioner Higgins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second to Commissioner Meddy. I think she's right next to me.
Electronic delay.
One, beat the technology out. All right, all those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Julie, would you like to take the ayes first?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Kirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Higgins?
Aye.
Commissioner Farr?
Aye.
Commissioner DeSanctis?
Aye.
Commissioner Meddy?
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Marcos? Chair Piper?
Aye. All right, would anyone like to, are there any noes or abstentions? I think that was everybody, wasn't it? Okay, great. Your variance is approved. Thank you. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
And nice project. Thank you so much. All right, moving on this evening, do we have a planner's report?
No, sir.
All right, do we have any members' reports? Not seeing any. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening.
I move to adjourn the planning commission meeting.
All right, motion for adjournment from Commissioner Meddy and a second from Commissioner DeSanctis, I think it was. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I don't know. Oh, I know. Yes.